Hello everyone and welcome to the latest Handyman in the field. I'm Dustin and today we have a new topic. Going in line with our video rotation, we're going to be talking about tools, but rather than diving into something that relates specifically to a tool, one of the things that I thought was very important kind of correlates to something we've already talked about when we looked at the tools inside of my truck, is specifically why tool organization matters more than expensive tools. When you're building your level of tools, also you're building your level of organization, you're going to realize certain things become way more important. People think that the key to working faster sometimes is buying better tools. And I am not one to sit there and say that cannot be true. However, in my experience, that's only part of the equation. The biggest thing that's made me more efficient, which ultimately makes more money in my pocket, isn't a tool, but it's having a system. Systems make a huge difference, and they make a huge difference in your efficiency and ultimately your profit and the money that you're able to use to either grow your business, put more money in your own pocket, things like that. Every professional develops some sort of system over time. It doesn't matter who it is. You go to the grocery store, they have a system on how they order the things that they have a system of tracking what gets bought and then what needs to get ordered. And then how do things come, logistically get brought back into the store and then put back on the shelf to start the whole cycle all over again. There are systems in place for how to track materials when it comes to certain things. There's how to track trucks. Let's say you're a logistics company and you had trucks going all over the country or the world and with airplanes and stuff like that. You have to track that kind of stuff. But ultimately you have to have an idea of where everything goes. And it's based off of a system. The goal isn't just to own tools. It's to know exactly where they are. Now, sometimes, as you can see from behind me, things can just be a mess. It's just how it goes. I spend roughly probably an hour every single week putting everything back to where it needs to go, making sure that the things inside of my truck are refilled. And if I need to buy something, I make sure it's sitting in my cart for Home Depot so that I make sure I purchase it right away when I go to Home Depot the next time. You have to keep up with these things. You have to keep up because the thing is, let's say, for example, you needed a cleaning wipe. You used the last one, you don't have another container sitting in your shop, and you need to buy a container. You go to Home Depot, you don't purchase it. A couple times goes by, you don't need it. Then all of a sudden a job comes up and you are in the middle of doing something and you've got caulk all over your hands. How do you get the caulk off? Well, you could find a sink. Hopefully it'll come off with soap and water. But you're now using the customer's sink. So now you're going to have to probably clean their sink if you've left caulk behind. There's a lot of things that comes into play if you don't have some of the things that just make it easier for you to do what you need to do. Missing something or not being able to easily track something because you don't have those systems in place, it can be a big deal. But more specifically, what we're talking about today is where you have things. Everything you see on my bench that you sometimes see behind me has a place. There's a place for everything. That's not to say that some places can't get changed or that things can't adjust, but realistically, everything has a place. And if you go to that place and it's not there, it's probably because either you left it behind at a job, you used the last of it, or you need to replace it. Good systems reduce stress, they save time, and they help you focus on staying on the job. Worst thing possible is you have a situation where you need something, you've got to run to the store. I've had this happen plenty of times. Everybody has it happen plenty of times. You need something last minute. You didn't think about it, and now you don't have something, and you're trying to get something taken care of. Now you've got to run to the store. The closest store is 10 minutes away. It's only 20 minutes. But that 10 minutes there, 10 minutes back, maybe 5 minutes in the store, 25 minutes maybe 30 minutes all said and done by the time you actually do all of this. Well, if that happened 4 times throughout the day, you're losing out on 2 hours of potential work just because you have to run to the store, that many times. And that adds up very quickly. 2 hours per day, 5 days a week, that's 10 hours. If you were paying yourself, or if you had a tech and you were paying them, let's say $20 an hour, that's $200 an hour, or $200 over the week that you're potentially not being able to do anything. 10 hours at $20, that's a lot of money that you're potentially throwing away just because you don't have good systems in place. So ultimately, every tool needs a home. If you're consistently searching for a tool, your system needs work. I have very specific spots. I try to teach my helpers where exactly everything goes, so that way I know where it is when I need it. You do have to sometimes, especially when you are interacting with other people, you do have to follow up and make sure things get put back where they belong, because if it's not there and you need it and they're not there, then there's no way of knowing where exactly it is. Every item should have one designated place, not multiple places. Now, you could have multiple items. For example, I have multiple tape measures inside of my truck. One is the one that I typically use when I'm at a job and I'm measuring. But I do have an extra tape measure sitting in my truck so that if I was needing to cut something, as a very specific measurement, I could do it without having to go get the tape measure that is typically inside of the job. It's just nice to have two. I have multiple pencils. I have multiple markers. Things that you need duplicates of makes sense, but everything should still have a place. There's a home location for those things, and there's a second location for those things, but it's still a specific location. Returning tools to the same place after every job becomes second nature. Ultimately, you just start getting in the rhythm of just putting the stuff back exactly where it goes. I've explained this before about how I have my main tool bag. All the main normal hand tools that I use on a regular basis are in there. I have a small collapsible bag that when I go into a job, I will purposely pull out what I need, throw it in the bag. I don't want to bring the whole toolbox. Nobody wants to bring a 300-pound bag into the job site because you're bringing everything you need. So I throw it in there, bring the bag inside, and then I have it. Now, yes, is there times where occasionally I need to grab something else? Yes, that's not that big of a deal. But most of the time you start doing something, I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be replacing some light fixtures. You end up grabbing the same exact items every time because that's what you need. You know what you need and you just grab them. Now, another option is you could create systems where you create individual boxes. You say, here's my plumbing box, here's my electrical box, and those work. But sometimes I've noticed that there's so many specific tools that you use for multiple different things. Those are your home tools. The specific boxes is more for individual small materials, individual specialty tools, things like that. Eventually, we're going to get to showing some of my kits that I have. One of the ones that I have that is pretty complete and I haven't had any issues adjusting for a while is my plumbing box. Every time I do a faucet, a drain repair, a garbage disposal, any of those, I bring that box with. And it's to cover myself because there's things inside of that box that I have had to use that sometimes it's just nice to make sure you have. I have extra supply hoses. I have extra washers for the drain pipes and things like that. And I have that stuff specifically so that way it's readily available. So I'm not having to run to the store for a small rubber reducer washer. You don't want to have to be doing that. My organization has to be intentional because every inch of space matters. I don't have a giant truck or a giant van, I should say. I have a truck, but everything that I have is contained inside of the cab. So I don't have, a deck box that pulls out. I currently don't have a cover on the back of my truck, so I don't put a lot in the back of my truck so that way, because one, there's no way to secure it right now. So I have to make sure that everything that I have is in that truck. So you have to have a spot. You have to find a system that works for your setup rather than copying someone else's. That's one of the reasons why videos when people do truck tours are so popular, is because people are getting ideas on what they could do for themselves. I've watched a ton of videos. I love watching van tours of guys who've got their vans, put together and organized for work, whether it be specific work like mine or whether it be like a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter. It's cool because you get ideas and you can use those ideas to create your system, which works for you. The best thing that I would always suggest is organize by task, not just by tool. Instead of carrying everything into the job, organize around that one type of work. Like I said, grab the bag, put the stuff you need for that specific tool, that specific job in that bag. There's occasional, when I know what jobs I'm doing for the day, I will have certain items that I will pull out of my main cabinets and put into a crate inside my truck. Those specific items are items that I don't need to carry with me every single day, but I know I need them for those specific jobs. It's good to have those readily available and not having to dig through everything. The other stuff is, think in terms of, like I said, plumbing, electrical, drywall. You can start creating these kits based off of what works for you, what you use on a regular basis. Start analyzing how you go about using or performing jobs and what tools you regularly use. I have a very specific group of probably 10 items that I bring with whenever I'm doing any sort of drywall work. I don't really need any more than the 10 items. Now, could I have more than 10? Sure. But most of the time it's just those 10 items. Specific drywall knives, specific scrapers, specific things that I use to scrape, to mix the hot mud, things like that. Generally speaking, it's very straightforward as far as like what I'm planning, what I need. It just makes things, when you're loading it into your truck and you're unloading it, it just makes it go faster. Walking back to the truck multiple times also adds time. I know I said this earlier about having to go to the hardware store, but if you have to keep walking back and forth to the truck because you've got too many things that you didn't grab, that adds time too. So just remember that as well. Searching for one misplaced tool wastes a ton of time and breaks your rhythm. I've experienced that a little bit here and there because I have my helpers putting my stuff away after I'm done with the job. I'm having them do it so that they start to remember where things go. Sometimes that can bite you because they might put something in the wrong spot. Generally speaking, as long as it's within the toolbox, it's pretty easy to find. But it just sometimes that happens. Saving just a few minutes on every job adds up over hundreds of jobs each year and makes you more efficient. It gets you home to your family a little bit earlier, gets you more money in your pocket because you're able to fit in an extra job. That stuff matters. One of the things that I've come to realize recently is that our business of being a handyman is all about obviously solving problems, but being as efficient as possible. But a lot of times what we do is trying to figure out the most, I wouldn't say the easiest or the quickest, it's the most efficient way of getting a task done. And if you can get really good and efficient at doing a specific task over and over and over and over again, it adds up very quickly. If your service trip is $100 and you charge $100, you can do a ton of trips that only take a couple minutes. Changing out a light bulb, all kinds of different things for a property manager at various properties and charge $100 at each location because you stopped by and took care of something. That adds up very quickly. One thing you have to keep in mind is that your setup has to be able to evolve. I've changed a number of things. I've taken tools out of certain locations that I don't use. There's certain things that you realize, oh, this would be better. Also, tools that can make things more efficient. I know I said it earlier that organization is more important than the expensive tools, and it is 100% true. There is definitely tools that are more expensive that can make you more efficient, but you need to start with not spending the money on the expensive tools and just becoming more efficient with what you've got. That's the biggest thing, because if you can learn how to do something efficiently with like the bare bones, when you eventually have the money that you can spend on something that makes you even more efficient, you're going to fly. You're going to fly, and you're not going to have anything stopping you. So just keep that in mind. Every frustrating experience that you have when it comes to a job is an opportunity to improve your organization. You get upset because you forgot something. Well, there's a breakdown in how you prepared for this job. Did you have the correct list of stuff you needed? Did you just not pack it? Did you just not bring it? Those are things you can fix. Expensive tools can help, but they won't fix your poor organization. You just got everything thrown in the back of your truck. You're going to be spending a long time searching for the one thing that you need when you need it. A good system makes every tool you own more valuable. Like I said, in the future, I'm gonna break down some of my toolboxes. I'll show you one of my systems by walking through my plumbing box, and I'll tell you why it's set up the way it is. It's not necessarily in a situation where the entire box is individually organized. It's what's in the box that matters, because if I go somewhere, I have everything that I potentially need. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that I had everything that I possibly could need. And every time I have a situation come up where I'm at a job site, something happens, and I realize I should have had this, that's something I immediately add to the box. And that's something that goes into the evolving. You constantly have to evolve and things like that. But the next time we talk about tools, I'll be showing off the plumbing box and we'll go from there. But as I said, just try to think about the best way to organize your stuff. It'll make you more efficient, and the efficiency can then lead you to, some of those more expensive tools that you'd like to have, because more efficiency means more money, and more money means you have opportunities to do different things with it. So with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share. If you have any questions or comments about the topic that we talked about today, be sure to leave them in the comment section. If you have any suggestions on videos you'd like to see in the future, be sure to check that, or to leave those in the comment section as well. With all that being said, this has been the Handyman in the Field, and we'll see you guys next time.